Let's go to State Senator Joey Fillingane, District 41, Chairman of Judd B. and Vice Chair of Medicaid Committee. Morning, Joey. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Paul. It's such an honor to be here with you this morning.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it, and we got a good phone line. Speaking of Medicaid, this presidential candidate, and I've just seen this in the last 24 to 48 hours. I mean, she is all in for Medicare for all, which is basically, and it's not the first time that she's mentioned this, but apparently you think maybe she'd soften that a little bit, but Medicare, for a socialism of medicine, basically, and people don't understand if that happens, and plus this fact, if you do have 20 million illegals in this country, they most likely also would be given free health care with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this Democratic presidential ticket is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I mean, they are the most liberal, far-left, crazies, pinko commies that we have seen, I guess, since, I don't know when. I mean,
ever. And you're being nice.
Yeah, and I'm being, polite, yes. I think, because I'm on the radio. But, yeah, Walz and Harris, I mean, literally are to the left of Bernie Sanders. They're not only in favor of Medicaid and Medicare for all, they're for illegals in our country getting all the social services, including health care, education, free phones, public housing. It's insane. I mean, we have enough problems, as we all know here in Mississippi, providing for legal citizens who are in real need and trying to lift them up out of poverty into the middle class. We absolutely cannot afford, as a country, as a nation, to envelop 20-plus million illegally people who are here that crossed over, didn't bother going through the legal procedures, and expect full access to all the benefits of the United States of America. It's no wonder our deficit is ballooning like crazy right now.
One of the people that advocates for that, too, was the lady from the squad, Odd Squad, that was just apparently won her election, and that was Oma. And Walz had some very wonderful praise for her. And he is all in also on this thing as far as Medicare for all.
I'd like to, first of all, say thank you to Imam. I am a teacher.
Now, this is an Imam and not Ilhan, but he had one on Ilhan also, and I got those confused yesterday, so I don't want to do that one more time. But he's in it. Both of them are talking about the expansion of Medicare for everybody, but nobody's even thinking about this. By the time that you break the bank on just the regular part of it, you know darn well that 10 to 20 million different illegals are going to be part of that also. So it's something to think about.
It's really mind-blowing, and I'm so glad you're bringing some light to this. It's a shame that the mainstream media seems to gloss over all of these really inconvenient facts of her record and her own words.
Yeah.
Where she was a presidential candidate, 4 years ago herself, called Biden a racist, and then became his vice president. I mean, the whole thing is like upside down world, looking through the glass sideways. It's just very odd.
But Joey, everything is from when we were kids and growing up, we looked at Minnesota, and what was the first thing you thought about when you thought about Minnesota? It was cold, ice, and the land of 10,000 lakes. We thought, what a paradise up there. Man, it is it's gone to a Muslim enclave where it's just wacky.
It is. It's very extreme. I mean, Governor Walz of Minnesota has adopted every failed policy of the West Coast and imported it up into to Minnesota, and no one should wonder why he let Minneapolis burn down 4 years ago, and no one seems to care that half of those businesses still haven't reopened. I mean, is that the blueprint for how he would make America great again and his ideal? I don't understand that.
We're going to talk some state stuff, too, in a minute or two, but let's get some national out of the way. Just to give you an idea how radical these people are, and not only radical as far as the state legislature and in their different communities, but they're making their way to Congress. And you talk about Ilhan Omar.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
She actually said that. Fearful of white men causing most of the deaths in this country. Now, first of all, it's wrong. It's wrong to say that, and it's statistically wrong.
Well, she's not as a fruitcake, obviously. And for someone who was born in Somalia, where, Black Hawk Down and all that, where Americans have gone and tried to bring the law and order back to that very troubled land, for her to come over here, successfully run for Congress, and then be espousing all this pinko commie pablum about housing being a human right and all this sort of thing for illegals, it really just begs the question, what are the people in her district thinking when they vote to send her to Congress?
I don't know. I honestly and truly do not know. You have to have enough people to just not know what's going on, and whatever they say works, and you believe it, because it's bad news. We had a lady yesterday that we were talking about, Angela Stanton King, and you find some great stuff on social media today. It is amazing when you start looking, and I don't know if you saw some of the numbers from the chat between Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
I love that.
We're talking.
I listened to it twice.
Yes, we're talking contact now, not only in the hundreds of millions, but almost a billion by the time you get all of the stuff that happens on social media. And regular television, as far as the networks now, there's no way they're going to keep up. And you got a certain amount of people in the younger demographics for sure who probably haven't spent 15 minutes on ABC, CBS, Fox, or CNN. They get
You're exactly
most of
right,
it.
Paul. I mean, you're on the cutting edge. I mean, SuperTalk and talk radio, that's really where, so many working class folks are there, like me right now, on my drive into work. I'm listening, and I'm getting information. I'm getting educated. I'm hearing, the truth about what's going on in our country. But you're right. So infinitesimally small percentages of people sit down like my parents used to do, at 5 o'clock and 5:30 and watching Tom Brokaw on NBC Nightly News. I mean, that was the thing we used to do growing up. My parents and grandparents would do that, but they don't do that anymore. I mean, people get their information off the social media, off of the computers, off of certainly SuperTalk and other like-minded talk radio programs. So I really feel like these polls have got to be greatly skewed because, they're still using landlines and that sort of thing. You're missing a great swath of America if you're relying on landline phone calls.
State Senator Joey Fillingane, you're absolutely right. When you can really gauge this is when there's something like when the president had the assassination attempt. You think everybody stops what they're doing, put on their phone, and turns it to Fox News or CNN? No. They're getting 99%. And I don't care what age you are. It could be your kids or your grandparents. They're checking their phone, and they're getting as much data from a multitude of sources, what people are saying about it, people who were there, people who that they trust will give them information.
Sure. And I can't blame them. I mean, obviously, part of it is just a function of how busy we've gotten in our daily lives, going and coming. And, no one really works an 8 to 5 anymore. We're working all the time. You're working from home. You're working your side hustle. You're on your computer logged in, doing whatever you've got to do to make a living, working 2 or 3 jobs sometimes to make ends meet. But the other part of it is that the network news, the last time I checked it out, it's so biased and so not news. I mean, it's opinion. Yeah. It's Rachel Maddow spouting off about, transgender kids being victimized.
That's it. We got a quick break coming up on this one, and I want to continue this conversation. But it's not only spouting off about different things; it's blatantly wrong, incorrect information there for a purpose, and they do it over and over. And again, regardless of the age out there, people are saying it's enough of this. One of the other things is so many great things on social media. And I'm going to give you one of those when we come back in just a moment with Joey Fillingane. Hang on. State Senator Joey Fillingane is on with us. What were we talking about? I want to get to a couple of other things, but finish your thought in your process on what you were talking about.
Well, Paul, I think we were saying just how the legacy media has really fallen behind where most Americans are, not only in content, but in their delivery model. I think, broadcasts like yours that are both local in nature, where you get, quality information, you get it succinctly, and you get it with a local flavor, is really winning. These network newscasts that no one really pays attention to anymore.
One of the things, and I didn't see a lot of it on the advent of when social media became so prevalent. We did it through comedy cuts. We did it through a lot of things that showed up on there because a lot of the presentations were whether it's humor or news on all of these different platforms. So it's great to have a morning show where you not only get the latest in some of the old music, new music, what's happening on social media, the latest the sound bites, and put them all together. It takes a lot of time, but it is a combination of everything, and I think you leave after 3 hours by having a better understanding of what's happening, at least during that 24-hour period. And also find some gems on there, like Angela Stanton King. Miss King had something, I cut this down for brevity, never changing the contents. Never do that. Some of it was repetition. But just to give you an idea, where you get a chance to share some great things on social media.
You could see black people come together and raise all of these funding for Kamala Harris, and the only policy she got right now is reproductive rights. But we were born with the right to reproduce. Like, how do you have to have permission to reproduce? What they're fighting for is permission to stop the reproduction of what they produce. This is a Democrat platform, okay? This is what the Democrat Party represents. Why are we being liberated by the thought of abortion? So if I'm the mother and you're the father and we created the life, why should anybody else value life if we don't value it? They say they're fighting for women's rights, but you have to be born in order to become a woman.
Wow.
Right? So I can't support the type of women's rights that execute the women of tomorrow. But not only that, educating myself to know that 80% of all abortion clinics, all Planned Parenthood clinics, are in black communities. We get abortion clinics, they get fertility clinics.
That's powerful. And it is something that if it's just on some isolated afternoon show, which they probably wouldn't let on The View, you'd never hear it. So it's one of the great things about social media.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, the last time we had a major abortion bill a couple of years ago in Mississippi, I was presenting on the Senate floor. I'd gotten the latest statistics from the Mississippi State Department of Health. And in Mississippi in that year, I think it was maybe 2022 or something like that, over 87% of the abortions in Mississippi were to African-American mothers.
Right.
So she's absolutely correct. Not only did they locate intentionally the Planned Parenthood abortion clinics in minority communities in the poorest parts of the states, it is reflected in the outcomes because 80+% of abortions, close to 90% in Mississippi, were of African-American babies. I mean, can you imagine if that word got out, what that would do to the Harris campaign?
I think it's out, but nobody pays attention to it because the indoctrination for years is you can't believe these Republicans, whatever they're saying, they're saying it for their own benefits, and they want to put you back in chains. So if you believe any of that, you're going to die from the chocolate because there's poison in there. And I think that's changing now. Certainly because the immigrants coming in now, by the literally thousands, are supplanting them, not only in their services, but sooner or later in their political positions.
Yeah.
They're going to win these elections.
Yeah, and the vast majority of the Hispanic population that are immigrating here both legally and illegally.
Mm-hmm.
Socially, they're extraordinarily conservative. Most of them are Catholic or, evangelical in their traditions in South America and Latin America. And they're coming here. They're far more conservative socially than the current minority population in this country. So, I mean, I think it's really eye-opening when you hear folks like the lady just had on spouting the truth. It's really jarring to the liberal media and to the liberal electorate in some of these blue states.
That's almost like the explosives getting out of hand. If in years to come the illegals here become conservative, then I don't know what the Democrat. I think that their thought on this is this: we'll control the Constitution before that happens, and I think it's the only way.
Something I don't know.
To that end, as far as the state Senate and House is concerned, should we look at anything coming up in this legislative session as far as squatters' rights? Are we pretty solid on that in the state?
Well, no, actually, we're not really solid on that. Unfortunately, we have a huge problem if you look around Jackson in particular, but not just Jackson. You look around Hattiesburg and Tupelo and other metropolitan areas of our state. The homeless crisis has gotten out of hand. I mean, you have people just squatting on bank parking lots and setting up their little tents and sleeping bags. It's horrible. I mean, drive up and down Fortification Street any given day of the week. We have got to do something in Mississippi, and thankfully we now have a Supreme Court decision that was just handed down back in June or July. Major landmark case. It didn't get a whole lot of attention because we had so many other landmark cases coming down the pipeline this year, saying that states can actually enforce some of these laws and clear out these homeless encampments. Yeah. And you even have liberal states like California, where Governor Newsom, immediately following that ruling, came out with an executive order stating that the cities in California must clear all homeless shelters and encampments out of public spaces in the state parks, city parks, those types of places. So even a liberal bastion like California is saying enough is enough now. We've got to get a handle on this because, unfortunately, there's so much mental health issues and drug issues that are largely involved in the homelessness crisis that we have in this country. So I'm certainly going to work with the Lieutenant Governor's office and trying to get some language that will provide some solutions for law enforcement to go and check these folks, give them wellness checks, make sure if they're on drugs or they're in a mental health crisis that some intervention can take place and clear these folks off of the streets.
When one of our responses on ceasefire text line is when we were doing this story on the squatters taking over the apartment complexes in a couple of locations in Colorado, is his response, and I said that I don't think that goes on in Mississippi, but he says, oh, yes, it does. When you have somebody in an apartment and they should be kicked out, not so much squatter, but they should be kicked out because they violated the tenets of the contract, or they're just not paying. It literally, you got to go get a lawyer, and it takes months. So if squatters wanted to come in and take care of or take advantage of the weakness in our law, should we look at fortifying that?
We absolutely should. And unfortunately, part of the problem is you have absentee landlords, or you have situations where a building has been abandoned. I mean, I think of going up the high street to the Capitol, the old Christian church there on the right-hand side, right before literally gets 2 blocks before the Capitol, you see clearly that the homeless have taken over that old abandoned church. You have like sheets hanging out the windows and all sorts of people coming and going. Obviously, drug activity is certainly not far behind that. And it's not healthy, not only for the individuals that are involved themselves, but it creates a public health and a public health crisis for the surrounding neighborhoods. So it's something we've got to get our handle on. We don't have the problem like you've heard about in some of the northern cities about people trying to evict somebody and Mississippi judges not taking care of that.
That's good.
They should. Not so much that issue, but you have a lot of absentee landlords, people that live in other states that own properties here, they're just not here. And
Good,
as long as no one's raising Cain about it, it doesn't bother them. They're in Colorado Springs or wherever. And so they just let the homeless run rampant on their abandoned buildings, and it creates a public health crisis.
Yes, it does.
And it's not
Senator,
just
we are almost out of time. I thank you for joining us. I think of the solution in Jackson as far as the homeless. Move them out to the zoo, and nobody would ever see them. So that would be that's my suggestion.
It's a sadness, but let me just say we're so thankful that you are doing so well, Paul. I know for
thank
a
you,
while
man.
there we
Appreciate
were
it very much.
concerned, and you're on our prayer list. But obviously, the Lord has taken care of you, and we're so thankful that He has.
You got it. Thank you, man.